Welcome to Winning Begins at Home. Glad you're with me today. Can't wait to talk about what I'm going to talk about this week. It's going to be fun. I've been thinking about this topic for a few days because, I actually mentioned this one day last week, it's graduation time of year. Kids are getting out of school. This was always my favorite time of year as a student. Loved the last day of school, nothing better. You got summer coming up. I'm not sure exactly how they do that. I think they've shortened the summers a lot these days from what I'm hearing, but this year-round school is going on. But I always loved the last day of school, love graduation. And so I have a little bit of this this mindset that a guy told me. He said something, and I thought, man, that's not right. But unfortunately, we all sort of fall into this trap if we're not careful. Here's what happened. I'm making a talk, and I get through with this talk, and I'm talking. Actually, in the talk, I say something about the importance of reading. And this guy came up to me at the end of the talk, and he said, hey, man, he said, I need to tell you something. That stuff you said about reading, he said, I appreciate what you're trying to do, try to get everybody to read. But he said, I made a vow when I graduated high school that I would never read another book, and I've never opened another book. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? This guy's probably in his 40s when he told me this. And I'm thinking, man, what in the world? How can you make it through life and never read a book? But I will say this was not the most impressive guy I've been around. I was actually, it didn't surprise me that he hadn't read a book. You get around somebody who's a reader, and they're usually a little more emotionally intelligent. They're more intelligent, period, right? If you think about it. And so it made me start thinking about this time of year. What are we doing to be learners? And I want to make a case this week that there's an importance to being a lifelong learner. Now, here on the show, we talk about how do you win outside of work. And I say winning begins at home. This is not just about winning in your relationships. We talk marriage and family and parenting and all that stuff. We'll spend time on that. But we also are thinking about what do we need to do to grow? What do we need to do to get better? What do we need to do to position ourselves? Many times what we do outside of work actually positions us to win at work. And so this week's going to be one of those weeks. We're going to talk about some of that stuff. And I want to encourage you today to be a person who is committed to learning. Now, I looked it up. I've been doing a little research on this to prepare for the week, and I found that there's some very interesting things that happen when we don't learn or when we stop learning. It's amazing. Our cognitive ability actually, it won't surprise you, but it goes down when we stop learning, when we don't read any more books, we don't open a book, we don't spend time with somebody who's going to challenge our thinking. We don't go maybe even any other courses or whatever. You probably got some things that some intentional learning that you do. When we stop doing all that stuff, our brain stops growing. It basically atrophies, and the neural pathways in our brain, which get worn when I'm not a brain scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but when we do things repetitively, when we make a commitment to grow, the neural pathways in our brain, it's like it makes these paths that grow, and it's amazing how much we can gain when we'll just commit to being a lifelong learner. But if we stop learning, our problem solving ability goes down. You would think this is all true, but actually, if you don't think about it, or we don't ever talk about this, it's amazing. It's also when you stop learning, your curiosity actually goes away. It fades, they say. And I know we're really curious as kids when we were in school back, especially as young kids. We're really, before they put us in alphabetical order and said, stay in your seat and be quiet. There was a lot of curiosity in each one of us. And I think our curiosity is so important as an adult. And so if we stop learning, we stop growing, then our curiosity fades. And not only mentally do those things happen, but emotionally, it's like we just dry up. We're actually more depressed when we stop learning. We're more stressed. We have more anxiety. All those things are evidence that we've stopped growing. And there's other reasons for those things, but there is a correlation between when we stop growing, we stop trying to improve. Emotionally, it does affect us, and it affects us socially. Our conversations become repetitive. We just end up talking about the weather all the time if we never learn anything new, or we're never curious and asking anybody else about anything new. We honestly would become less relevant in so many ways when we stop learning. And we're professionally, even if we wanted to talk about work for a second, we're going to be much more change resistant and and our skills become obsolete. All kind of things happen when we stop learning. So this week we're gonna talk about the importance of learning. I got something tomorrow for you this is just a revolutionary idea. I hope you'll join us for that. But here's what I want to ask you today before we go. I want to challenge you to ask yourself, is there any hint of what the guy said after the talk of, I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to grow anymore. I'll say this. I didn't like school very much, but I have really embraced this idea of learning since I got out of school. And for the last, I guess, almost 40 years now, I've been really on a path trying to learn something every day, trying to get better every day. And many people around me would think, well, man, you must have not been in a very good place when you started. Truthfully, I started out when I got out of school. When I went to college, I started in remedial English. I couldn't even get into an English class. And so the idea of me speaking and writing and all that stuff, you may think it's laughable now. It was really laughable then. I made so much progress because I just made a commitment to learn every day. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I hope you'll join us for that. I also hope today you'll do a little inventory in your own mind and heart. Do you have what Carol Dweck, she's a professor, a college professor, what she describes, she's written a book called Mindset. And she said there's two kinds of mindset. There's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. I'm going to ask you to push the fixed mindset aside. It's the one that says, I know enough. I've learned enough. I don't need any more. As long as I know how to do my job, I'm fine. I'm going to ask you to push that one aside. It's the one that plays it safe. And I'm going to ask you to embrace a growth mindset and come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about how we can practically do what we're describing here. And I think this week is going to be maybe a revolutionary week in the way you think. It might not be anything new, but it might just be a little bit of a jolt. We said last week, I guess I said, there's no do-overs. You can't go back and change what you did or didn't do in the past, but there is a start over, and this week could be a catalyst for your future. So I hope you'll join us for that. All right, share with somebody you know. Continue to tell those friends and family about our show. All organic here. We're not doing anything. We're trying to get you to help us spread the message, and we're trying to do everything we can to help you win at home. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for more Winning Begins at Home.